Hundreds of former students, parents, and colleagues came to honor my 30-year teaching career. My daughter Amanda and her family stayed home for a concert. That night, I made a decision that changed everything. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the windows of Roosevelt Elementary School as I packed the last items from my classroom into cardboard boxes. 3 decades of teaching, years spent shaping young minds, arriving early and staying late, were all coming to an end on this quiet Friday in June. My name is Victoria Chen, and at 55 years old, I was finally ready to close this chapter of my life. The decision to retire hadn't been easy, but after 30 years in the classroom, I felt I had given everything I could to education. My students had been my world, my purpose, my daily joy and occasional frustration. As I carefully wrapped the ceramic apple that had sat on my desk for 25 years, a gift from my very first class, I couldn't help but smile at the memories. The countless parent conferences, school plays, science fairs, and graduation ceremonies. The struggling readers who finally found their confidence, the shy children who learned to speak up, the troubled kids who discovered that someone believed in them. Teaching had never just been a job for me. It was a calling, a passion that had shaped not only my career but my identity. When people asked what I did for a living, I didn't just say I worked at a school. I was a teacher, with all the pride and dedication that title carried. But now it was time for something new. At 55, I was young enough to enjoy a second act, whatever that might look like. Perhaps travel, maybe writing, or even starting that small business I'd dreamed about for years. The possibilities felt endless and exciting. The retirement party had been planned for 3 months. Linda Morrison, my closest colleague and the school's principal, had insisted on making it a proper celebration. "Victoria, you've touched so many lives here," she'd said when discussing the arrangements. "This community needs to honor what you've contributed." We'd reserved the school's multi-purpose room, hired a caterer, and sent invitations to current staff, former colleagues, and the families of students I'd taught over the years. The response had been overwhelming. Nearly 200 people had RSVP'd yes, including former students who were now adults with children of their own. But the most important people on my guest list were my family. My daughter Amanda, 32 years old and a successful marketing manager, lived just 20 minutes away with her husband Mark and their 2 children, Jessica, 16, and Tyler, 13. I'd raised Amanda as a single mother after her father left when she was 8, and despite our occasional disagreements, I thought we had a strong relationship. Amanda had always seemed proud of my career choice, often telling friends how dedicated I was to my students. She'd volunteered at school events when Jessica and Tyler were younger, and she understood the demanding nature of teaching better than most, which is why I'd assumed, without question, that she and her family would be front and center at my retirement celebration. "Mom, we'll definitely be there," she'd said when I first mentioned the party 3 months ago. "This is huge. 30 years is incredible. We should plan something special for you." Her enthusiasm had warmed my heart. After decades of putting my students' needs first, often at the expense of family time, it felt wonderful to know that Amanda recognized the significance of this milestone. The invitations had gone out in April, clearly marked with the date, Saturday, June 15th, 6 p.m. I'd hand-delivered Amanda's invitation personally, making sure she saved the date. We'd even discussed what the grandkids should wear and whether Tyler would be willing to give a short speech about having a teacher grandmother. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," Amanda had said during one of our planning conversations. "You've dedicated your whole life to other people's children. It's time for everyone to celebrate what an amazing teacher you've been." Those words had meant everything to me. Teaching can be a thankless profession. Parents often only contacted me when there was a problem, and recognition for good work was rare. To know that my own daughter appreciated my career and wanted to honor it publicly felt like the perfect capstone to 30 years of service. As the retirement party date approached, I found myself looking forward to it more than I'd expected. It wasn't just about recognition, though that was part of it. It was about closure, about bringing together all the different phases of my career in one room. Former students who were now doctors and teachers themselves, parents whose children I'd helped through difficult times, colleagues who'd become lifelong friends. But most importantly, it was about sharing this moment with Amanda, Jessica, and Tyler. They'd lived with the realities of having a teacher in the family, the late nights grading papers, the weekend school events, the way my attention was often divided between them and my classroom responsibilities. This party would be their chance to see how much their sacrifice had meant, how many lives had been touched because of the career I'd chosen. The week before the party, I confirmed details with the caterer, picked up my dress from the dry cleaner, and made sure the slideshow of classroom memories was ready for projection. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Then, on Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Amanda, and something in her voice immediately put me on alert. "Hey, Mom, I need to talk to you about Saturday." My heart sank. In 30 years of motherhood, I'd learned to recognize that tone. It was the voice Amanda used when she was about to disappoint me but was trying to soften the blow. "What about Saturday?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. Well, something incredible happened. Mark's client gave him 4 tickets to see Coldplay at the arena. "These are impossible seats, Mom, front row, VIP access. Jessica has been dying to see them live, and Tyler's finally old enough to appreciate good music." I sat down heavily in my empty classroom, surrounded by boxes that suddenly felt like monuments to a career no one in my family seemed to value. "Amanda, Saturday is my retirement party." I know, and I feel terrible about the timing. But, Mom, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. These tickets cost thousands of dollars, and Mark's client just gave them to us. We'd never be able to afford something like this ourselves. The reasoning felt hollow, prioritizing money and entertainment over a milestone that represented 3 decades of my life. "Couldn't you go to a different Coldplay show? They tour regularly." "Not like this, Mom. These are special VIP packages, meet and greet, backstage access, the works. Jessica would literally die if we passed this up, and you know how hard it's been to find things that Tyler gets excited about lately." I closed my eyes, trying to process what I was hearing. My daughter was asking me to understand why a rock concert was more important than celebrating my life's work. "Amanda, I've been planning this party for 3 months. You've known about it since April. There will be over 200 people there. And they'll all understand that family emergencies come up. You could tell them we had a scheduling conflict." "Scheduling conflict?" "Amanda, this isn't a casual dinner. This is my retirement party, after 30 years. Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. You know how much I support your career. Missing one party doesn't erase 30 years of being proud of you." But it did feel like an erasure. It felt like she was saying that all those years, all those students, all those sacrifices, they weren't worth rearranging her Saturday night plans. "What about Jessica and Tyler? Don't you think they should be there to support their grandmother?" "Mom, be realistic. Jessica is 16. Sitting through a retirement party isn't exactly her idea of fun, and Tyler would rather do literally anything else. The concert will actually mean something to them." The casual dismissal stung more than I'd expected. My retirement party, not fun for teenagers. A rock concert, meaningful. The mathematics of value in my family apparently didn't include recognizing my achievements. Have you asked them? Have you explained what this party means to me? There was a pause, which told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't even presented it as a choice. She'd simply decided that the concert was more important and was now trying to manage my reaction. "Amanda, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about Saturday night. This is about respect. This is about showing your children that family commitments matter. This is about recognizing that 30 years of dedicated service deserves acknowledgement from the people who supposedly love me most. You're being dramatic, Mom. It's just one night. We can celebrate your retirement anytime. Take you to dinner next weekend, have a family barbecue, whatever you want. Just one night. Just my retirement party. Just 30 years of teaching." The waiter or minimization was breathtaking. "So your final answer is that you're choosing the concert?" "I'm choosing to give my children an experience they'll remember for the rest of their lives." "And what about giving them the experience of honoring their grandmother's career? What about teaching them that commitments matter?" The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, with Amanda growing increasingly defensive and me growing increasingly hurt. By the end, it was clear that nothing I could say would change her mind. The concert had won. After hanging up, I sat alone in my empty classroom, surrounded by the remnants of my career, and cried for the first time in years. Not just from hurt, but from a profound sense of disillusionment about my relationship with my daughter and what my life's work meant to my own family. Saturday evening arrived with perfect weather. Warm but not hot, clear skies, a gentle breeze that felt like a blessing on this important day. I'd spent the afternoon getting ready with unusual care, choosing a navy blue dress that struck the right balance between professional and celebratory, having my hair done at the salon, even getting a manicure, luxuries I rarely indulged in during my teaching years. Looking in the mirror before leaving for the party, I tried to project confidence and joy despite the hollow feeling in my chest. This was my night, regardless of who chose not to be there. I would celebrate my achievements and honor the career that had given me so much purpose and satisfaction. The school's multi-purpose room had been transformed. Linda and the organizing committee had hung white lights and blue streamers, my favorite colors. Round tables covered with white linens filled the space, each centerpiece featuring small chalkboards with messages of appreciation from current students. At the front of the room, a banner read, "Celebrating Victoria Chen, 30 years of inspiring excellence." As guests began arriving, I was overwhelmed by the turnout. Former colleagues I hadn't seen in years, parents of students I'd taught decades, current staff members, school board officials, and most surprisingly, dozens of former students, now adults with careers and families of their own. Sarah Martinez, whom I'd taught in 3rd grade 22 years ago, approached with her 2 young children in tow. "Mrs. Chen, you probably don't remember me, but you changed my life. I'm a teacher now because of you." Robert Kim, a former student who'd struggled with reading until we found the right approach, introduced me to his wife and proudly announced that he'd just been promoted to head librarian at the county system. Maria Santos, whose family had struggled financially when she was in my class, handed me a business card showing she was now Dr. Maria Santos, pediatric surgeon. "You made me believe I was smart," she said, tears in her eyes. "When everyone else saw a poor kid who didn't speak English well, you saw potential." These conversations continued throughout the evening. Former students thanking me for believing in them, for pushing them to achieve more than they thought possible, for making learning joyful even when it was challenging. Parents sharing stories about how I'd helped their children through difficult times, how my classroom had been a safe haven during family crises. Linda gave a beautiful speech about my contributions to Roosevelt Elementary, reading letters from former principals and superintendents. The school board president presented me with a plaque recognizing my years of service. Current students had made a video montage of their favorite memories from my classroom. But throughout the evening, my eyes kept drifting to the table I'd reserved for my family. 8 empty chairs around a table set with the special family centerpiece I'd requested, photographs of Amanda growing up, pictures of Jessica and Tyler, at various school events I'd attended as their grandmother, memories of the family I'd thought would be here celebrating with me. Other guests noticed the empty table too. "Where's Amanda tonight?" asked several people who knew my daughter from school events over the years. I found myself making vague excuses. Family conflict. Previous commitment. Couldn't make it tonight, rather than admit that my own daughter had chosen a concert over my retirement party. The most painful moment came when Tyler's former 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Patterson, approached me with curiosity. "I was hoping to see Tyler tonight. He was always so proud when you'd visit our classroom. He'd tell everyone, 'That's my grandma. She's the best teacher in the whole school.'" Those words, shared with love and admiration, cut deeper than any of Amanda's justifications had. Tyler had been proud of me. He'd bragged about having a teacher, grandmother. But apparently, that pride wasn't strong enough to compete with a rock concert. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, each one thanked me warmly and expressed their appreciation for my years of service. Former students hugged me and promised to stay in touch. Colleagues shared final memories and wished me well in retirement. But when the last guest left and Linda and I were alone cleaning up, the reality of the empty family table hit me with full force. "I'm sorry about Amanda," Linda said gently, understanding, without explanation what the absence had meant. 30 years, I said, staring at the untouched family table. 30 years, and my own daughter couldn't spare one Saturday evening. "Her loss," Linda replied firmly. "She missed something beautiful tonight." all those former students, all those families whose lives you've touched. This room was full of love and gratitude. That matters more than one person's poor judgment. She was right, but it didn't ease the sting. As I drove home that night, I replayed the evening's conversations and presentations. The genuine appreciation from former students and their families had been deeply meaningful. The recognition from colleagues and administration had felt validating and appropriate. But the absence of my own family had cast a shadow over everything. It felt like a fundamental statement about my value in their lives. That 30 years of dedicated teaching wasn't worth adjusting their entertainment plans. At home, I found a text message from Amanda sent during the concert. "Hope your party was nice, Mom. The show was incredible. Jessica cried when they played Fix You. Thanks for understanding." The casual tone, the assumption that I had simply understood their choice, the emphasis on Jessica's emotional reaction to a song while completely ignoring my emotional reaction to their absence. It was infuriating. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I sat in my living room, still wearing my navy blue dress, and made a series of decisions that would change my relationship with Amanda and her family forever. The next morning, I woke up with unusual clarity about what needed to happen next. The hurt from Saturday night had crystallized into something harder and more resolved. After 30 years of putting other people's needs first, my students, my daughter, my grandchildren, it was time to put myself first. My first call was to my financial advisor, Patricia Williams, whom I'd worked with for the past decade to plan for retirement. She was used to weekend calls from teachers who did their personal business when they weren't at school. "Patricia, I need to make some significant changes to my financial arrangements." "Of course, Victoria. What kind of changes?" I'd established education savings accounts for Jessica and Tyler when they were born, contributing $200 every month for their college expenses. After 16 years for Jessica and 13 for Tyler, these accounts had grown substantially. "I want to close the 529 accounts for my grandchildren and redirect those funds." There was a pause. "Victoria, that's a lot of money. Jessica's account has nearly $40,000, and Tyler's has about $32,000. Are you sure about this?" "I'm absolutely sure. I want to establish scholarships at Roosevelt Elementary instead. Awards for students who demonstrate respect, dedication, and appreciation for education." Patricia took notes as I outlined my wishes. The scholarships would be awarded annually to students who showed not just academic achievement, but character, children who helped classmates, who supported their teachers, who understood that education was a privilege deserving of gratitude. My second call was to my attorney, David Brennan, whom I'd consulted when buying my house and setting up my will. I explained that I needed to update my estate planning to reflect some family changes. "What kind of changes are we talking about, Victoria?" "I want to significantly reduce my daughter's inheritance and redirect the majority of my estate to educational causes." David, who'd handled enough family disputes to understand the implications, suggested we meet in person to discuss the details. "This is a major decision, Victoria. You might want to take some time to consider the ramifications." "I've had all night to think about it," I replied. "This isn't an emotional reaction. This is a values-based decision about what I want my legacy to represent." We scheduled an appointment for Monday afternoon. I would use the weekend to draft a letter explaining my decisions. Not because I owed anyone an explanation, but because I wanted my reasoning documented clearly. Sunday passed quietly. I didn't hear from Amanda, which wasn't unusual. She typically called on Sunday evenings to catch up about the week ahead, but apparently she was still basking in the afterglow of her concert experience. Around 6 p.m., my phone finally rang. Amanda's number appeared on the screen. "Hey, Mom, how was your party yesterday? I've been meaning to call, but we've been so busy processing last night. The concert was absolutely amazing." Her cheerful tone, the focus on her experience rather than mine, the casual dismissal of what her absence had meant. It confirmed that my decisions were correct. "The party was lovely," I said neutrally. "Very well attended." "That's great. I knew it would be. People really appreciate good teachers. So what's your plan for this week? Want to get lunch and hear about the concert?" The assumption that I was eager to hear about the event they'd chosen over my retirement party was remarkable in its insensitivity. Actually, Amanda, I have appointments this week to handle some financial and legal matters related to my retirement. Oh, that sounds boring, but responsible. Anything I can help with? No, these are decisions I need to make independently. Something in my tone must have registered because she paused. Mom, is everything okay? You sound strange. I'm fine. Just processing some changes that need to be made. We ended the call without scheduling lunch, and I spent Sunday evening finalizing my letter and my thoughts about the upcoming meetings. Monday afternoon, I sat in David Brennan's office with documents spread across his conference table. My current will left everything to Amanda, with provisions for the grandchildren if something happened to her. It was a straightforward arrangement that I'd established years ago, without much thought. Victoria, you're talking about leaving your house, your retirement savings, everything to charity instead of to your family. This is approximately $400,000 we're discussing. I understand the amount, David. I want to establish an endowment for educational scholarships and teacher support programs. I want my legacy to honor what actually mattered in my life. What about your daughter? What about your grandchildren? I pulled out the letter I'd written, reading him the relevant sections. Amanda has a successful career and a comfortable lifestyle. Jessica and Tyler have parents who can afford concert tickets that cost thousands of dollars. They don't need my money, and based on Saturday night, they don't value my contributions anyway. David took notes as I outlined my wishes. A portion of my estate would fund college scholarships for students from low-income families who demonstrated academic excellence and good character. Another portion would provide grants for classroom supplies and professional development for teachers. A smaller amount would support literacy programs in underserved communities. I want to leave Amanda enough to cover my funeral expenses and maybe a modest inheritance, say $25,000, but the bulk of my estate should go to people who will appreciate and use it to further education. And the grandchildren? The grandchildren have learned an important lesson about priorities. If they want college funding, they can earn scholarships based on merit, or their parents can pay for it. David reviewed everything carefully, asking questions about my mental state and decision-making capacity. Standard procedure for major estate changes. Victoria, I have to ask, is this decision related to a specific incident? Are you making changes because you're angry about something? I considered his question thoughtfully. I'm making changes because I've realized my values don't align with my family's values. I spent 30 years teaching children to be respectful, grateful, and committed to their responsibilities. My own daughter couldn't model those values for one evening. That tells me everything I need to know about what's important to her. The new will would take several days to prepare. David suggested a cooling-off period before signing, but I was confident in my decision. My next stop was the bank where I closed Jessica and Tyler's education savings accounts. The teller, who'd processed my monthly contributions for years, looked surprised. Mrs. Chen, are you sure? These accounts have grown so much. The children must be getting close to college age. I'm redirecting the funds to scholarships for children who might not otherwise have educational opportunities. That evening, I called Roosevelt Elementary and spoke with Linda about establishing the scholarship program. Her excitement was immediate and genuine. Victoria, this is incredible. Do you know how many deserving kids we see every year who could use this kind of support? We discussed the criteria for awards, the application process, and how to honor the scholarships. I wanted them to be meaningful recognition, not just financial assistance. I'd like them to be called the Victoria Chen Character and Achievement Scholarships, I said. I want recipients to understand that academic success and personal integrity go hand in hand. By Wednesday, I still hadn't heard from Amanda beyond her Sunday call. This wasn't unusual. We typically talked once or twice a week unless something important was happening. But her silence felt different now, like evidence of how little my retirement party had registered in her consciousness. I decided to speed up the process rather than wait for her to notice something was wrong. Thursday evening, I called and asked if she could come over for dinner Friday night. I want to discuss some changes I'm making in retirement. Sure, Mom. That sounds great. Should I bring the kids? Actually, I'd prefer if it were just you and Mark. We need to have an adult conversation. This got her attention. Is everything okay? You're not sick, are you? I'm perfectly healthy. I just need to share some decisions I've made about my financial planning. Friday evening, Amanda and Mark arrived with a bottle of wine and apparent expectations of a pleasant family dinner. I'd prepared a nice meal: salmon, asparagus, wild rice, and we chatted about work and the kids while eating. After dinner, I served coffee and put a folder of documents on the dining room table. Amanda, I've made some significant changes to my financial arrangements, and I wanted you to know about them directly rather than having you discover them later. She looked puzzled. What kind of changes? I opened the folder and handed her copies of the paperwork I'd completed during the week. I've closed Jessica and Tyler's college savings accounts and redirected those funds to establish scholarships for underprivileged students. I've also revised my will to leave the majority of my estate to educational causes rather than to you. The color drained from Amanda's face as she read the documents. Mark leaned over to see what she was looking at, and his expression quickly shifted from confusion to alarm. Mom, what is this about? Are you angry about something? I'm not angry, Amanda. I'm disappointed. But more than that, I've realized that my values and your values aren't aligned in ways I hadn't fully understood before. This is about Saturday night, isn't it? About the concert? Saturday night was a symptom, not the disease. It showed me how little you value what I've dedicated my life to. Amanda set down the papers, her hands shaking slightly. Mom, I told you, that was just bad timing. We would have been there if we could have rearranged things. But you could have rearranged things, Amanda. You chose not to. You decided that a rock concert was more important than honoring 30 years of my career. Mark, who'd been reading over the documents, spoke up. Victoria, this seems extreme. Those college accounts represent years of contributions. You're talking about Jessica and Tyler's futures. I'm talking about teaching Jessica and Tyler that actions have consequences, that commitments matter, that respect for family isn't optional when something more fun comes along. Amanda was growing agitated. You're punishing the kids for a decision Mark and I made. They didn't even know there was a choice between the concert and your party. Exactly my point. You didn't even present it as a choice. You decided for them that my retirement party wasn't worth attending. Because they're teenagers, they would have been bored out of their minds sitting through speeches about teaching. The dismissal in her voice confirmed everything I'd realized during the week. To Amanda, my career was just a job that teenagers would find boring. The idea that witnessing their grandmother being honored for 30 years of service might actually be meaningful to them had never occurred to her. Amanda, do you remember what you said when you were Jessica's age and I was considering leaving teaching to take a corporate job? She looked blank. You said, Mom, you can't stop being a teacher. That's who you are. That's what makes you special. You understood then that teaching wasn't just what I did. It was who I was. I remember you being dedicated to your students. Too. Dedicated? Not dedicated enough to my own family? She hesitated, sensing a trap. I just meant that you always put your students first. I put education first. I put the value of learning and growth and respect first. I thought I was modeling important values for you. Apparently, I failed in that goal. The conversation became heated, with Amanda arguing that I was being unfair and vindictive. Mark tried to mediate, suggesting that we could find a compromise. But I'd moved beyond the point of compromise. The decision has been made, I said finally. The scholarship. Funds have been established. The new will has been signed. These aren't negotiation points. They're notifications. You can't do this, Amanda said, tears starting to form. This is our family's financial security. Your family's financial security is your responsibility, not mine. You have successful careers. You can afford concert tickets that cost thousands of dollars. You don't need my money. What about Jessica's college? What about Tyler's future? What about teaching them that respect and gratitude and family commitments matter? What about showing them that choices have consequences? As Amanda and Mark prepared to leave, both clearly upset and angry, Amanda made one final attempt at emotional manipulation. Mom, if you do this, if you really give away Jessica and Tyler's college money and leave everything to strangers, you're going to destroy our relationship. Is that really what you want? I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised and loved and supported for 32 years, who was now threatening to withdraw her love if I didn't fund her children's education. after she'd failed to show up for the most important evening of my career. Amanda, our relationship was damaged Saturday night when you chose entertainment over honoring me. This week, I'm simply aligning my financial decisions with the reality of our relationship. So this is it? You're choosing money over family? No, sweetheart. You chose a concert over family. I'm choosing to support people who value education and respect and gratitude, values I apparently failed to instill in you. After they left, I sat in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace with a difficult decision. For the first time in decades, I'd put my own values and needs first. It was simultaneously heartbreaking and liberating. The following weeks brought a series of difficult conversations and relationship recalibrations. Jessica called, crying after learning about the college funds. Tyler sent an angry text calling me a mean grandma. Amanda's calls became infrequent and strained, but other relationships deepened and flourished. The scholarship committee at Roosevelt Elementary included me in planning meetings and decision-making processes. Former students reached out regularly, sharing updates about their lives and careers. Colleagues invited me to retirement gatherings and social events. Most surprisingly, some family relationships improved. My sister Carol, whom I'd always felt overshadowed by Amanda's success, expressed admiration for my decision. Vicky, I've watched you give and give and give for 30 years. It's about time you stood up for yourself. 6 months after my retirement party, I received an unexpected phone call from Jessica. Now 17 and starting to think seriously about college applications, she wanted to meet me for coffee. Grandma, I need to apologize for how we handled your retirement party. I was surprised by her maturity and directness. I've been thinking a lot about it, especially as I'm applying to colleges and writing essays about people who've influenced me. I realize that you've been one of the most important people in my education, and we missed the chance to honor that. What? Changed your mind? Partly getting older, partly realizing that the college money you redirected is actually helping kids who really need it, and partly understanding that actions have consequences, something you tried to teach us that night. Jessica asked thoughtful questions about my teaching career, about the students I'd helped, about what retirement was like. For the first time, she seemed genuinely interested in my life beyond my role as her grandmother. Would it be too late for me to interview you for a school project about influential people in my life? It's never too late to show appreciation and respect. Our coffee conversation lasted 3 hours. Jessica recorded parts of it for her project, asking about specific students I'd helped, about challenges in education, about what advice I'd give to young people. At the end, she hugged me tightly. Grandma, I'm proud of you, not just for being a great teacher, but for standing up for yourself when we let you down. Tyler's evolution took longer. At 14, he was still primarily focused on immediate gratification and social acceptance. But gradually, he began asking questions about the scholarship program and the students it was helping. Amanda's relationship with me remained complicated. She struggled to accept that her absence from my retirement party had catalyzed such significant changes. But slowly, she began to show more interest in my post-retirement activities and more respect for my career achievements. A year after my retirement, Roosevelt Elementary held its first Victoria Chen Character and Achievement Scholarship ceremony. 5 students received awards, not just for academic excellence, but for demonstrating kindness, respect, and dedication to learning. The recipients included Maria, whose family had immigrated from Guatemala and who tutored younger students despite working part-time to help support her household. David, who had overcome significant learning disabilities through persistence and was now helping other struggling readers. Sarah, who had organized a school supply drive for families who couldn't afford basic materials. These children understood the value of education in ways that transcended test scores and grades. They appreciated opportunities, respected their teachers, and supported their classmates. They embodied the values I'd tried to teach for 30 years. Amanda, Mark, Jessica, and Tyler all attended the scholarship ceremony. Seeing the recipients and hearing their stories seemed to impact them in ways our family conversations hadn't achieved. After the ceremony, Amanda approached me privately. Mom, I think I'm finally beginning to understand what you were trying to tell us. These kids really appreciate what you've done for them. All children appreciate recognition and support when it's offered with genuine respect, I replied. These students just haven't learned to take it for granted. I owe you an apology, not just for missing your retirement party, but for not understanding what your career meant to you and to so many other people. Apology accepted, but more importantly, what are you going to do differently going forward? Amanda had been thinking about this question. I want Jessica and Tyler to volunteer with the scholarship program. I want them to meet these kids and understand what educational opportunity really means. And I want to start contributing to the fund myself, not to replace what you redirected, but to support what you're building. These conversations and changes didn't happen overnight. Rebuilding trust and respect took time and consistent effort. But gradually, my family began to understand that my retirement decisions hadn't been about punishment. They'd been about alignment between values and actions. The scholarship program grew beyond my initial contribution. Other community members, inspired by the character-based criteria, began donating time and money. Local businesses sponsored additional awards. Former Roosevelt Elementary students, now successful adults, established their own educational funds. 2 years after my retirement, I received a letter from Maria, the first scholarship recipient, who was now thriving in high school and planning to become a teacher herself. Mrs. Chen, your scholarship didn't just help with school expenses. It showed me that education is about more than getting good grades. It's about character and helping others and making a difference. I want to be the kind of teacher you were. Reading that letter, I felt a satisfaction deeper than any family reconciliation could have provided. This was what 30 years of teaching had been about. Not just imparting knowledge, but inspiring character and creating a legacy of values that would continue long after I left the classroom. My relationship with Amanda gradually improved as she began to demonstrate genuine respect for my career and my values. Jessica became a regular volunteer with the scholarship program and chose education as her college major. Tyler, now in high school, started tutoring younger students and developing an appreciation for the challenges teachers face. But the most important change was in how I viewed myself and my worth. For 30 years, I'd been a dedicated teacher. For 32 years, I'd been a devoted mother. For 16 and 13 years, respectively, I'd been a loving grandmother, but I'd never been someone who put her own values and needs first when they conflicted with family expectations. The retirement party that no one in my family attended had taught me that lesson. 3 years later, I can honestly say that missing my retirement party was the best thing that ever happened to our family relationships. Not because the absence itself was good, but because it forced honest conversations about respect, values, and what truly matters in life. The empty table that night had been filled with painful truth, but from that truth grew authentic relationships, meaningful contributions to education, and a legacy that honored what I'd actually spent my life building rather than simply passing down money to people who hadn't learned to value it. Sometimes, the greatest gift disappointment can give us is clarity about what we're willing to accept and what we're brave enough to change. The scholarship program continues to grow, now in its 4th year, and has helped over 20 students pursue their educational dreams. But more importantly, it serves as a daily reminder that respect and gratitude aren't optional in relationships. They're essential. Every time I see one of the scholarship recipients graduate or achieve a milestone, I'm reminded that the empty seats at my retirement party led to something far more meaningful than any family celebration could have been. Those absent family members taught me the most valuable lesson of my teaching career. Sometimes you have to fail people who take you for granted in order to pass the test of self-respect. Today, Amanda regularly attends school events where I volunteer. Jessica is student teaching at an elementary school and calls me for advice about classroom management. Tyler, now a junior in high school, has started a tutoring program for struggling readers, inspired, he says, by his grandmother's example. But the relationship I'm most proud of rebuilding is the one with myself. At 58, I've learned that it's possible to love your family while refusing to accept disrespect. It's possible to be generous while maintaining boundaries. And it's possible to turn the deepest disappointments into the most meaningful victories. Retirement party I thought would celebrate the end of my teaching career actually marked the beginning of the most important lesson I ever taught, to myself and to my family. Sometimes the classroom is your dining room, the students are your own children and grandchildren, and the curriculum is about dignity, respect, and what it truly means to value education and the people who dedicate their lives to it. My empty retirement party table became the foundation for a full and meaningful legacy, and that's a lesson worth retiring for. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to teach your own family to respect your achievements? Share your experiences with our community. To listen to another story about standing up for yourself and demanding the appreciation you deserve, click on the video suggestion that appears on your screen. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're never too old to teach people how to treat you, even if those people are your own family.